Muhammad says, what is the difference between giving sujood as-Sahw, prostration of forgetfulness, before Salam and after Salam? Can you please explain in detail? Answer. First of all, this is the first time I've heard someone mention offering sujood after Salam. This is new to me. But every day we learn something new. There are many hadiths narrated by companions like Abdullah ibn Mas'ud, Abu Huraira, and others. May Allah be pleased with them all, which describe different scenarios. In a nutshell, because we can't go into extensive detail here. First, you must understand that sujood as-Sahw is offered when a person makes a mistake in a pillar, rukn, or a mandatory wajib, act of Salah. This means that if you make a mistake in a voluntary act, whether by omitting or adding it intentionally or unintentionally, it does not affect the validity of your prayer to the extent that it requires sujood as-Sahw. For example, if someone forgets to raise their hands at the beginning of prayer while saying Allahu Akbar, their prayer is still valid. Raising the hands is a sunnah. But if the person does not say Allahu Akbar at all, then they have not started the prayer properly. Because saying Allahu Akbar is a pillar, the prayer hasn't even begun without it. So, to apply sujood as-Sahw correctly, one must know the pillars and mandatory acts of prayer in order to understand when and how to offer the prostration. Secondly, scholars say there are two situations where sujood as-Sahw is done before the Salam and two situations where it is done after the Salam. Sujood as-Sahw before Salam. This is done when you omit a mandatory act due to forgetfulness. For example, you are praying 4 rak'ahs, and during the second rak'ah, you forget to sit for tashahhud and stand up directly for the third. Once you are fully standing, someone says Subhanallah to alert you. At that point, you do not return to sit. You continue your prayer as usual, and before ending it, you offer the 2 prostrations of forgetfulness. Then say the final Salam. Another example, if while in ruku, you forget to say Subhana Rabbiyal Azim, which is mandatory, and remember later, you do Sujood as-Sahw before Salam. Sujood as-Sahw after Salam. This is done when you add something unintentionally to the prayer. For instance, if you stand up for a 5th rak'ah in a 4 rak'ah prayer and realize it's a mistake, you must sit down immediately. If you add a 3rd sujood by mistake and realize it, you must stop immediately. In such cases, after concluding the prayer and saying Salam, you then perform 2 sujoods of forgetfulness. So, in summary, if you omit a mandatory act out of forgetfulness, you do sujood before Salam. If you add something unintentionally, you do sujood after Salam. Understood? Now we come to the third case or situation, and that is when I am confused in the middle of prayer. I'm totally unsure whether this is the 3rd rak'ah or the 4th. My confusion is, did I perform 1 prostration or 2? Is this my 3rd or 4th rak'ah? Whenever there's this kind of confusion and I'm completely lost, I don't know if it's the 2nd, 3rd or 4th rak'ah. This is a state of doubt. The Prophet said, when one of you is in doubt during his prayer and does not know whether he has prayed 3 or 4 rak'ahs, let him assume what is certain, then complete his prayer and perform 2 prostrations before the Salam. So if I'm doubtful whether I've prayed 3 or 4, I base my judgment on what is certain. I know for sure I've prayed 3, and the doubt is in the 4th, so I act as if I've only prayed 3, continue accordingly, and then before the Salam, I offer 2 prostrations of forgetfulness, Sujood as-Sahw, and then give Salam. This is when there is no inclination, no clear leaning one way or the other. It's a 50-50 doubt. In this case, I assume the lesser number. Another example, if I am in sujood and don't know whether it's my 1st or 2nd sujood, I assume it's the 1st, because that's the certain one. Then I perform the 2nd and offer sujood as-Sahw before the Salam. Case number 4 is similar. I'm still confused. Did I pray 3 or 4 rak'ahs? Was that my first or second sujood? But in this situation, I'm inclined toward one of the two. I'm not completely lost. For example, I say, most likely this is the third, because I remember reciting something after Surah Al-Fatiha. Or, most likely this is the fourth, because I heard someone say something that usually happens in the fourth rak'ah. So, there's some evidence or reason that inclines me toward one possibility. In that case, I act based on what I believe is most likely correct. Finish the prayer. And then after the Salaam, I offer 2 prostrations of forgetfulness. To recap, you perform Sujood as-Sahw before Salaam in 2 cases. If you omit a mandatory act in prayer unintentionally. If you are confused about the number of rak'ahs or prostrations and cannot determine the correct one, so you act based on the lesser number. You perform Sujood as-Sahw after Salaam in 2 cases. If you add something to the prayer unintentionally, like a 5th rak'ah or a 3rd sujood. If you are confused but you are inclined toward one option over the other, and you act based on that inclination. And when we say after Salaam, do we mean another Salaam after the sujood? The answer is no. You simply say the final Salam to end the prayer. Then immediately go down for 2 prostrations saying Subhana Rabbiyal A'la, and then you're done.